questions, right? All right, so we have a team presenting next, and you might have seen them before. They were also taking conference photographs, so you've seen them around.
Speaking of which, how would somebody like to take some photos?
During our sessions.
I'm gonna be without, I kind of
want to treat this.
Not me. I can't take a photo to save my life.
Otherwise, I'm unfortunately not gonna be able to get out and actually take any of all the other talks that are happening at the same time, so.
So this is where Twitter comes in, right?
Yeah, this is
Anyway,
great. All right, well, you know the drill by now. Silence your phones and remember to do the surveys after. We do have some paper copies up here, and everybody has been tweeting actively, but just continue to use that hashtag because there are some surprise door prizes that we'll find out what they are.
Yes, absolutely.
So I am pleased to introduce you to Kiera Howe. She is Chief Geek, aka Chief Technology Officer for Wiley Solutions. And she's a software coder, entrepreneur, business owner, instructor, problem solver, and explorer of all things new in tech. Kiera has written code in over a dozen computer languages and built software from games to business web applications. Kiera has been using WordPress since 2007, and more recently, she's been teaching web design at Sheridan College using WordPress as a platform. And we have Shanta Nathwani, instructor at Sheridan College. Shanta is an IT web design and social media consultant and an instructor in web design and capstone project at Sheridan College. She's also a principal in Web Weapons, specializing in web development, business intelligence, and educational training. Some of her volunteer activities include being the alumni advisor for Women in Information Technology Management at Ryerson University, technical advisor for the Malvern Red and Black Society, and assistant instructor at the Canadian Martial Arts Center. So let's be nice to Shanta.
Thank you, everybody.
Kill you politely.
Well, I do Tai Chi as well, so some people would say I kill you slowly. So, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for everybody coming out. I apologize if my voice isn't exactly the best. The weather apparently doesn't agree with me. I ended up with a sore throat yesterday morning, so I've been trying to stave it off ever since. So if at any point you don't hear me, please do actually let me know. So what we are going to present to you today is a case study. What we are going to do is tell you what we do with our students, what we teach them, how we use WordPress in our classrooms, and teach our students how to use WordPress and hopefully become web developers someday. Also, how we use WordPress to engage them, as well as then how we use WordPress in some rather unconventional ways that our students may or may not know about. And I'm sure that none of them are watching right now, so they still won't know. So here's our quick agenda. We're going to go through a quick about us, about who our students are, what we teach them, the tools that we give them, aka what they know, and then the tools that we use, aka what they don't know. Yeah. This is how you find us. The slides have also been uploaded to shanta.ca, so if you go there, these slides are available there if you'd like to follow along. And of course our Twitter handles are down here. Mandatory hi Roy, just saying. Again, so this is, again, quick about me. In addition to the web design, I also teach the capstone course, which is where we pair our students with real live clients, where they do proposals and then hopefully get hired by that client at the end of the day. I've also just been picked up by Mohawk College to design and implement their WordPress 1 and WordPress 2 courses. I'm also a serial word camper. This is my 5th one this year. I did 7 last year and 7 the year before that. One of the big ones I've gotten to do, I did Mumbai and crowdfunded the entire thing because of course our college decides that this is not important and they don't need to pay for us to be here. Just saying. And I got this new title a couple of days ago, was Lead Dudette. Okay, and I can thank Matt, who's Matt Clancy from GoDaddy for that one because his description is great. I'll share it with you sometime. So
Hey, I'm Kiera. As the intro said, I've done all kinds of things, and I generally just like technology and sort of do a bunch of stuff with that. So we teach together at Sheridan College, and I do, outside of that, I do a bunch of custom software development. So clients who want something wants something special, I will build for them. Some of it involves WordPress plugins or other code within WordPress. And yeah, I go to WordCamps as well, but not as many as she does. So.
That might change.
Yeah, so I've spoken twice at WordPress before. This will be, more recent.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
Okay. So this is our student. These are our students. This is who they are. So we teach a joint program with the University of Toronto at Mississauga. So in order to get into our classes, which is a full-time program, you have to apply to the University of Toronto. It is a specialized program that is specifically designed to be a joint program with Sheridan College. In order for them to graduate, they have to pass our classes at Sheridan. If you wish to be in the Digital Enterprise Management program, you've got to take not only the beginner, but the intermediate and the advanced web design classes with us. Just saying. And let me be clear, we are training them to be translators, okay? We are not training these guys to be web developers. Think about it. You're doing an entire 4-year degree. You've got 3 classes of web design. That's it. Okay, and I'm going to talk a bit more about what we teach them. So at Sheridan, we give them things like the principles of design, web design, graphic design, game design, what I like to call the fun stuff. As part of their degree, they have to complete, I think it's somewhere between 6 to 8 courses at Sheridan as part of their degree, and it's mandatory. In addition to that, at UTM, they learn more of the business, the technical, the project management, the accounting, all the business side of this. So this furthers the idea that they are going to be those translators. They are not necessarily going to be those web developers, but they are going to have to work with those web developers. They are going to have to be able to understand the languages that they speak. And that could be the graphic designers as well, the ones that are doing game design, those types of things. And they need to be able to speak all the languages that they speak, so they become well-rounded translators. In a nutshell, this is our web stream that we teach them. We have an intro course, which is the CCT 260, HTML and CSS. That's it, pretty much, in the technical department. Because we assume that 80% of the students coming in have no exposure to code whatsoever. I've been teaching there now for 4 years. This has been pretty standard over the last 4 years in this course. We run this 260 course now 6 times a year. And it runs a lot, okay? The intermediate one, we run about 4 times a year. And that's where we get them into WordPress and into PHP. So you can see the level that we run them into really fast, okay? They've gone from learning maybe having no coding experience in the first class to learning HTML and CSS. And then when they hit the intermediate, we give them a quick review on HTML and CSS and get them right into WordPress. And then say, oh yeah, you know all that HTML stuff? Yeah, now you're going to get into PHP. And they all look at us going, are you nuts? We also teach them about content architecture, which is basically that you don't leave posts uncategorized. Really, like that doesn't make any sense to me. So we teach them about content strategy, and it goes also in line with the online marketing and advertising courses that we offer at Sheridan as well. And then of course we get them into the web design, the components of web design. In 260 we don't really care much what it looks like, just that it works. Now we're going to teach you what looks good. Lines, white space, all those kinds of components when it comes to web design. We get them to child themes, responsive web design, and of course teach them about those web standards. Lastly, in the 460 course, which is our advanced course, they start getting into creating those spaces. Rather than just using them to their own advantage, now they have to actually create them. They have to do a widget, a theme, and a plugin. We also get them into things like custom post types, short codes, creating those, not just actually using them, but now creating them, and then building a theme from scratch using underscores. So now they have this basic setup, and now they've actually got to apply all of the good stuff that comes after it. Now we get into the really cool stuff, okay? Now you know who our students are and what we teach them, and basically how we teach them WordPress in the class. The reason we teach them that, as you all know, WordPress powers 26% of the world's websites. So why would we teach them something that isn't going to be used as often? They are going to need to be able to manage those for their clients. So some of our students' tools. I'm going to cover the bbPress and BuddyPress components, and then I'm going to hand it over to Kiera. This is our forum, and for those of you that were in Shane's talk the other day, how many of you were in Shane's talk? Okay, yeah, it's ugly as sin. We know. Here's the thing. This was actually put up in answer to a very specific problem, okay? We had students that had questions about the course, and as I said, we run this about 6 times a year. But if we were using the standard learning management tool, that meant that 2 sessions that were running at the same time could not communicate with one another. That also meant that once the course shut down, we would have to start all over again. Same questions are going to be asked. We'd still have to answer them all over again, and there was no continuum year over year. So we created this literally out of the box. Yes, it doesn't look pretty. As a matter of fact, our students do a much better job of designing all of this stuff. That's why we keep this nice and ugly, so that their designs look so much better than ours, right? We've also implemented a frequently asked questions, which is the 3rd tab over, if you can see that, which is a separate plugin from BuddyPress and bbPress. So that when we have questions about, oh, how do I upload my file to the server? Well, here's your instructions. You go there, you find this and this and this. So when our students say in the forum, and they ask a question, how do I do this? We just go, it's already there. Go ahead, go look. And we can then build that knowledge base year over year. It also gets the answer to our students faster and more efficiently. Because now we can both answer the question rather than a student emailing me and me going, oh yeah, actually that's a question for Kiera to answer. It also now allows us to have other classes talk to each other. So we may have 2 sections of the same class going on at the same time, and they can now talk to each other. Moreover that, in the intermediate class, and I know that, I think it was, you had a question this morning in David's session about BuddyPress, was about how do you get them engaged, right? Our students have to log into UTM with their own email address and also deal with the course shells over there in Blackboard. Then they come to Sheridan College, they get a separate email account, then they have to log into D2L and then this. Yeah, I understand, I really do. So how do we get them to this? It's very simple, we allocate marks. You have 10% in the intermediate class that is specifically allocated to participation. 5 marks is you showed up. Well done, you got 5 marks. The other 5 marks is that you have proven that you have given into the community, which is what this is. And we also tell them that if you decide to contribute from the intermediate class down to the beginner class, help them out, I will grant that. I will take that as you having posted in the forum. So if at the end of the semester you have posted nothing, you've just lost 5 marks. So there's your answer. And we make sure that they go through and they do those posts. Somebody's not happy with me. That's okay, no problem. So that's how we deal with those types of installations and how we get them to this. So what have we noticed? Well, first of all, we are getting less emails into our inboxes of them asking us questions because we can now see it, and we also use an integration. Somebody was asking about the integrations earlier. We use an integration with Slack. So we get notified the minute that anything is posted to the forum. And we tell our students, we get that notification immediately, and we will sit on it. We will wait. Right? They say, oh, well, you didn't see that. Yeah, actually we did. What we were doing is actually waiting to see if anybody else would answer it. I had a student come in to me the other day and say, well, you didn't respond to this question or that question. I go, yeah, because it was adequately answered. So why do I need to say anything more than that? 2 brains cannot handle that level of information. Why not have 40 people in the class contribute to that same space? So that is why we use the BuddyPress and bbPress in our installation. Because now we have over 2, maybe, actually no, we're going on 3 years of knowledge in our classes that are delivered up to 6 times a year, over and over and over again. And now I tell them, you gotta search for it first. Prove to me that you have. And if you don't, I'm not answering you. Or I'm gonna tell you, go back to it and do it. The other part is if they email us with a question, and it should be posted to the forum, like it's not dealing with a password or anything, it's not private information, our response to them automatically, post it to the forum or we will not answer it. It becomes that simple. Otherwise, they could be waiting a week for us to answer. It's the reality. Over to Kiera.
All right. Okie dokie. So, in addition to bbPress and BuddyPress, we have a system. We are actually under the guidance of our IT department. That's not them. At least I don't think it is. So we have a server. We have no admin control of that server, so our IT department actually gives us a collection of accounts for our students to use. It used to be that process was building an Excel file and handing out each of these users to students. But then they need to get the Excel file, and there are issues revolving around that, keeping track and keeping things. So we've implemented that. We've implemented the distribution of accounts to our students based on using the WordPress layout, and it's done through my own code that I've written into a plugin. So this is our process as far as number one, we get a list from our IT department. Second thing, first class, we say to our students, you are to sign up on the forum, and when you do, you're going to get an account. And when you sign up, you're specifying what the class that you're in is, and you're going to get an account. It usually starts with CCIT and then a number and a 4-digit number attached to it. So the forum automatically hands out accounts to people. It gives them a temporary password, and then they can access cPanel with that temporary password, change the password, do everything that way. We have instructions to go through all of this, so we don't actually have to have our students in class to complete this. We don't have to have them finding Excel sheets. They can just follow the instructions. They get an account, and they have themselves some web space. I want to say it makes sense. It's like when I stand up in front of my class and I say at the end of my slides, I say, does that make sense to everybody, expecting questions? And I don't know, I could say that to you all, but so this is sort of what it looks like from our students' point of view. They sign into the standard WordPress profile, and at the very bottom there's a couple of extra fields on it: class ID and Phoenix user. And it shows up. They pick a class, and it gives them a Phoenix user, which they can then they can click get password, and it'll give them their temporary password. For a while, I was actually testing whether that password, it would test against the server whether they changed their password. The only problem with that is that it could have put a bit of a significant load on the server, and our IT people didn't really like that very much. So instead, it's just working as it is. So the second thing that our students get from the system is a lab tester. The second thing I built, or actually it was probably the first thing I built when I started up. I started a year and a half ago. I started with teaching with Shanta in the web design course. First thing I did was find out that it was gonna be hours and hours and hours of marking, because we have 7 labs that we give out to our students, and and each one of those has to be hand marked. So if we get 80 students in there, we end up having. Previously to me, they were going through them one by one to mark each of them. So what I did is I built a tester, and this tester we gave to our students. So the labs are simple. They're worth 1% of the overall mark. Each lab is worth 1% of the semester, and so it's what it does is the first thing it does is you upload into your web space a file. For example, lab 1. Lab 1's our simplest one. It's our startup lab. This is actually lab 3 that I have on my screenshot, but So lab one, for example, they upload to their site, they put the URL into the tester, and it comes back with something like this. And the first thing it does is it tests it does an HTML test. Really simple, straightforward HTML test. I actually built this myself because many of the other ones would throw out a whole bunch of other, would throw out all the errors about missing meta tags and missing things that we were not prepared to teach them at that point. So the tester is really simple, the HTML side of things. What it's doing is it's going through and making sure whenever they open a tag, that tag closes in the right order, that there's no, that they're not violating some of the standards, like everything should be in lowercase, that we have no inline styling, which is one of our rules.
Semicolons.
Semicolons.
Checks for semicolons.
Yeah, checks for semicolons. It checks for a lot of things. And if any of those come up here, it'll show up as a big yellow mark on here. And then the student can run this through and test it. Great thing about this is that the students don't actually have to come to us to say, oh, I've got something broken, I can't figure out what it is. They can, at 2 in the morning, they can run it through the tester, find out that indeed they have something that they opened and didn't close, or they closed without opening it. And they can work through that process. Because it's all troubleshooting. We're trying to, the ultimate goal here is to teach them to troubleshoot. Because it doesn't matter what language you work in, it's all about problem solving and troubleshooting. So once we get through the HTML test, it tests a number of requirements for the labs themselves. So I've encoded these myself according to what we tell them to do. So in the case of like lab 3, we're asking them to do to create a style. Sorry, I can't read my screenshot here very well. They should have styles built within that file. They should have three base. They should have like at least some of the HTML5 basics, like having a header and a footer, and an article, and potentially a nav on this page on lab 3, and a series of other things. So that's the second thing. We tell them fix the HTML first. Once they have that, then take a look at their requirements. Once they get the same thing here, they'll get an alert saying, for example, you can see these ones are in yellow. This is lab 4. Saying you don't have these things, then they can go back and actually update their code to fix that. What's great is this actually gets them working on this. It actually gets them building, even though it's really simple. They've got a really straightforward test. And then they get an answer right away, and basically we give them the same mark that they will get on here, on the tester. It means that they are actually doing the job, doing the work. They're actually going in and they're actually playing around with it. They're getting stuff working, and half of it, much of the learning process for HTML is about getting it working. So that's the goal. So those are our 2 student side things. On the other side of things, we have instructors. We have for the instructors themselves. So for Shanta and I, save us a little time, and such as I mentioned before, we have some administration that we do within the plugin. We have lab testing, a little more lab testing, which is the marking on our side, where we basically mass test people, and we have a Wayback Machine, which if you know about the Wayback Machine on websites, it basically gives you an old version of a website. Like you can go back a year, you can go back 5 years. You can see what your website looked like years and years ago. Well, we could do this with our student files as well. So first thing is account allocation. I mentioned before that our accounts, they give us a list of accounts, and that's what I do here. This is on this is one of the plugins that I use. Or that I built. What I do is I put a new class for the semester in, and I say these are the allocated users. And when the student goes and says I am in this class, it gives them one of those users. Simple, right? Ultimately, what it comes out to is our user IDs look like this, and our web space looks like this for each of them. So, second thing is the grading and the testing. So this is my test item here. What I do is I go in, we have Desire to Learn's Slate product. And what it will do is it will export a zip file with our students' submissions. So our students will drop a text file with a URL into Dropbox that we've configured on that. I will go in and I will take the entire, I will mass download all of theirs, and I built this in order to process that zip file. So it processes, it pulls in the zip file, it gives an entry for each student for each of them. It then will auto mark, so I can say mark all, and it will mark all of our students at once. Same code base that's used in the tester. On the student side is used here, so if the student gets 10 out of 10 on their side, it will show up as 10 out of 10 on here. Once that happens, I can click through the student's name and I will get details potentially about the technical, what the technical mark is. If it's auto marked, it goes into technical, and there'll be details about the technical information, whether they missed closing tags or they did something funny. I can then make modifications. I can enter some feedback for them if I need to. Most of the labs I don't do any feedback specifically from me. I let the testers do it for me. So once that's done, there's another button here saying get zip for Dropbox. I will click on that. I will put it back to the Slate. To Slate, it will end up, all the feedback will end up where the student can see it, and we go through and enter the marks. Makes it much faster. I can do a lab in a matter of 15 minutes. I will do assignments quite a bit faster because I will get, when I have to go through them each one by one, I'll see a whole bunch of tested items down at the bottom that I can say, all right, these remind me that, they may have bad HTML errors, they may have some things that they missed. If we ask them to do certain things in WordPress, like add entries for database, add entries like posts and such, it will say they have 3 posts. We ask them to put 4 and it will say, well, they missed a post. It gives a much quicker, it'll go through 10 different things. The computers are of course a lot faster at checking things like that. So it'll go through 10 different possibilities, 10 different things that were required without any effort on our side. Can I put everything there?
What is, I'm sorry. No, like with that page, I'm curious to see what the rest of it looked like. Is it how custom, the customization on that? Is it like a custom taxonomy page?
It is,
Because
no,
it's a very interesting layout.
It is kind of, so this is as much a, I could probably do an entire talk about this, what you shouldn't be doing in WordPress, because I've done a few things in here that are not WordPress standard. It is definitely, the layout is, this is standard, this is one of the standard WordPress lists.
Right.
This is all loaded with AJAX calls. So they're just separated, just floating left and right to each other. So you click on something and it loads up all of these. As soon as you make changes to this, it saves it back into the database.
Yeah, I was just curious, like how that fit in with the back end, like what the menus.
I have my own collection of menus. I'll show you.
No, don't worry. That's
We'll show you a demo if we have time.
If we have time, for sure.
okay. I get the hint.
Almost there.
No, I didn't mean that.
No, go.
All right, moving on.
Lesson.
All right, the last thing is the Wayback Machine. Now, this was kind of fun to write. It was, and what it does actually, our IT people are probably going to get very upset with us fairly soon, because right now I'm sucking up about 35 gigs worth of storage on their server. So I should probably clean that up at some point, because it's been a year and a half and it's been loading every change for every system, every user. So if we have 40 students in a class, so we started out as we have a lot of students who copy, well, not a lot, we end up getting 1 or 2 out of every semester. And a lot of that is, we kind of end up having to look at it as trying to decide whether it's something that they actually copied or whether they're just working together or other things like that. And what really helps is that process is to know what the student, how the progression of the student's work came previously to that. So if I wanted to see what our students, if I had two students that look really similar to each other, I could take a look at both of them and see what they did leading up to that. And I could see their previous file changes based on this. And it will show, so if they had 4 changes up to that point, and they've got, one of them has broken code, and then has the final assignment, and the other one has a clear progression of like, okay, we started with the example code, I've changed this, and then here's my final, and those two look alike. It's really obvious that the other person actually copied first person's. Whereas sometimes they can progress along at the same in the same process. So I built this when I joined on as well. And what it does is it keeps track of, it goes through periodically, twice a day. It checks to see if the file times have changed within that period of time. And it makes a copy of the file, saves it somewhere. Should add the future, I'll look at the future stuff. And then we have a nice little interface that lets us get the files. So if I click on one of these files, it will show me just all the lab 2s all the changes to this one file, or I'm seeing all the files in this particular view, and the dates that things have changed when there were changes. So the red lines are when students have made a change to this particular item. Okay. Cool. I thought it was neat. So there are a bunch of future expansion things. One of which I should add on this, to clean it all up and make it look a little less sketchy sometimes. But so we're going to build. I think we're going to try and build this out into a software as a service, a little friendlier system where we can actually deploy this to more instructors and make it easier for them to build their own test bank test systems, as well as giving the opportunity for them to use to give us the opportunity to have control of the system ourselves. We want to integrate our own LMS. So right now we're using Slate. We're using Slate. Slack on the brain, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Slate. We're using Slate right now. We figured we'd want to give the option if you wanted to use your own LMS or not. If we're going to expand this to other instructors. We're going to allow the students to submit straight from the tester because right now we have them submitting to a Dropbox. It makes it a little bit easier so that it's not such a roundabout going off to the Dropbox and then coming back. Automated testing, so having them once they've submitted stuff, having it just test on the minute that it's due, and then giving them their feedback pretty much instantly. Our WordPress, our student WordPress installs are not very well taken care of. I know you put that in there. Sorry, that's a little outside of what. Anyway, we'll automated updates, and we're going to make it available to the world. Yay! So,
Want to jump? I already got maybe 7 minutes or so.
let me see if I can get this up quick enough that I can. Firefox.
Off the desktop.
Really?
Really?
Really? Sure, I'm supposed to be using Firefox.
Yes.
All right. You're the boss.
No. Yes.
Pesky little tilts. All right, so this is the actual site itself. Nothing majorly special about the design, but one of the things that I can mention here is that we take a look at a particular question. Did I lost my voting?
Yeah, I think so.
That's weird.
Okay.
So one of the things I added with a plugin was I had a little button here that said, vote for this to be in your frequently asked questions. So so we had a list on the back end that would list all the things that were voted up. So we could take a look, and then we could go through and add them to our frequently asked questions, which look like this. So try to type today. So this is my plugin. It's got quite a few things. Some of it's under development, some of it's not. So, for example, the first one I was talking about was the class of men. This is straightforward. I'm just adding in numbers based on the name and the number, and then they disable them when I get past the previous semester. And then I have, just from an administration point of view, I have our Phoenix users, which are not supposed to be displayed, but okay. They show up as, it just shows up my Phoenix user subdivided into individual classes so that I can see, and the number of posts they've done. So for our 360 course, when we're talking, when we start looking at the end of the semester, when we start needing to mark them for their participation in the forums and such, we take a look at the post counts as they're associated with each individual class. Where's the tester here? So this is the lab tester. I have a lab one. This is just my my base here. So
There you go.
yeah. So this is the entry point. I have a file that I can either upload, I can have none, and I can just add them manually, but I can't put them back onto Dropbox when I do that, or I can upload them with FTP and they'll show up on this list. And I choose a lab, so one of our labs or assignments, and I choose whichever class happens to be active during this time will show up on this list. It ends up looking like this, so you can see the name, which I've redacted, which is what it was supposed to do in the last.
Whoops, I wasn't taking photos.
Yeah, nobody take any photos. You people on the other end of the stream better not have captured that.
This talk is recorded, just remember that.
Yes. We'll blur that out or something. So if I click on all right. If I click on the username, I will get something like this. Oh, that's not supposed to happen.
There you go.
We'll just do that.
Okay.
So, as you can see, this person had a few issues. Not to mention he was using his name as a tag for HTML. But essentially, you can see there's marks given out for the HTML down here. With the marks as far as the lab goes, and then we have if they have an error, it will light it up as yellow.
And this is also what they see from the tester. So when the tester goes through and it gives them all of those check marks like this, it will actually show them a copy of their code and highlight where the error is.
Cool. Well, and then I have the Wayback Machine, which is essentially the same idea. All right, so this is the Wayback Machine. It's very straightforward. It's just it just shows the updates to the files, yeah. So I think that's.
Okay, we're done.
Is there anything anybody wanted to see about any of this?
Well, you said that they would be able to see that their code has been highlighted, that there's an error.
Yes.
Do you put a cap on how many times they can test their own code? Or, so basically it's their fault for not fixing it before they submit?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's absolutely. We tell them you can test it as many times as you want. The goal is for you to get 10 out of 10 before you submit it. If you didn't,
That applies for our labs only though.
yeah.
We have separate, we have testers that we have access to that they don't have, that list that I was showing, some of those are not available to the
Especially for
students.
the assignments.
Yeah.
Yeah, major
So-
assignments.
So they have to basically put their best foot forward and then we test and we see the tests. Does anybody else have any questions?
No, I'm just interested in the integration. I got that down.
Okay,
If I ever start a school someday,
there you go.
Kevin, help me.
And we want to tell them with the WP admin hack.
Oh yeah, I have a WP admin hack.
Uh-oh.
It's,
No, we won't do that over the live stream. No,
It's
no,
like-
not over the live stream.
Turn off your cameras.
Yes, turn off your cameras.
None of our students.
God, it's even labeled WP admin hack. That's
It
cool.
is.
That's what we call it. That's exactly what we
It,
call it.
what it does is there's a fairly, because our it's all shared hosting, this particular server gives us some amount of access to our students' WordPress directories. It means we also have access to their database user ID and password, which means we can sign into the database, create a user on their within their database, and then we can get into their WordPress install, take a look around if we have to, and
And then get out and delete the user.
yeah,
They never know we were there.
like ninjas.
We are ninja,
Oh,
yes,
And they each get a WordPress install
that's correct.
set up on that server space that your IT department has.
That's correct. That's
It's
correct.
a standard cPanel server install, so.
And to give you an idea, Kiera mentioned how much time this saves, or that it does save time. I can tell you right now, before Kiera came on board a year and a half ago, the labs would take us upwards of 10 hours per week, manually. So this alone is saving us, you figure, and let me be clear, we are also not full-time instructors. We are paid for the time we're in class. So the more that we can economize our time outside of that, the better off that we are. So the fact that we were able to take it from 10 hours down to 5 minutes for 7 labs, and that's in the beginner class alone. The other thing that this does is, especially for the intermediate class, things like our WordPress classes, right, which is what we're getting into, is it will do like Kiera says, it will check how many posts there are. It won't necessarily dock the marks, but those now flag what I would normally have had to go through in their WordPress install to see have they done what I asked them to do, have they done a minimum of like 3 categories to make this anything worthwhile. So those will at least be flagged for me, so that even if it won't deduct the marks, but I can look at it and go, oh, actually, no, I spoke with the student about this, that case makes sense. And for that reason, again, I don't now have to go in and investigate each and every single one. It sends up that flag initially, and I can decide whether or not to add in the subjective piece, whether or not it's required or not. Jen?
They get a cPanel account. Do they have to actually create the install?
No.
Okay, so they're actually getting a cPanel with a WordPress install in it, presumably the default install.
Yeah, they actually go through that setup right in the first class. As soon as we get them into cPanel, they create their cPanel account, and when they actually go to their web space, like their CCIT, whatever that 4-digit number is, and it has WordPress on it, it will say, welcome to WordPress, please enter the name, please enter the user. It's literally a fresh install that's already been done, but it's at least presenting them with the options to create the users and everything else on their own WordPress installs.
okay.
Like that.
This is what they
This is what
begin
they
with.
Oh, so they're actually triggering the famous 5-minute install,
Yeah.
as opposed to say doing Installatron or.
They don't have to get the database installed or anything like that, but they do need to set up their WordPress.
Right.
And do these students stay with you for, your 3 sections there? So is it every time you start a new class, you start fresh, or does this account live until somebody matches?
They get a new account with every class. Okay. Because we like to keep whatever is there intact. We've had cases where students have left one class gone to the next one. And first of all, our beginner classes don't have WordPress installed. So when they move from 260 to 360, they get a brand new account which has WordPress installed. Then they keep those on there, because if we ever have a case where a student says, oh, I never changed the file afterwards, and it's actually now after they've done their class. I've actually had a student go back a month later, try and fight me on a grade for a lab, and within the 5 minutes that it took me to look at it and the coordinator to look at it, she'd actually changed the file. Now originally we had to go back to the IT department and ask them to pull the server logs to find out when it was changed. I'm sorry, you finished the course over a month ago. You've now just committed an academic offense. Now, we can find that out within a matter of minutes ourselves. So that's why we give them the new account, so that that can stay intact. If there's ever a contention or anything else, and that's the thing, is that we're teaching them very different things too, right? Like I said, we're using different themes, different underscores, and all kinds of fun stuff. So it's a heck of a lot easier, and they can use it then as a portfolio afterwards. Yeah. I think we're out of time. Thank you very much. We'll be around for